What's up, all you Minties? This is the Uncanny Omar from Near Mint Condition, and today join me for an advanced look at the Cloak and Dagger Omnibus Volume 2 from Marvel Comics, so stay tuned. Big thank you to David Gabriel and the folks at Marvel for sending us an advanced copy of this omnibus. This omnibus is due out in the direct market and book market on November 16th. So that date will have both the release of the book markets, so places like Amazon and Barnes & Noble, and direct market, your local comic book shop, cheapgraphicnovels.com, Walt's Comic Shop, or Dime Breed Collectors, Organic Price Books, in-stock trades, wherever you get your books. Now, what we're looking at here is the direct market cover by Larry Stroman. On your left-hand side is the standard edition cover by Rick Leonardo. But on the inside, everything is identical. It's just the covers are different. And I think the spines will also be different, but I don't have the file for the standard edition dust jacket. But these are the different covers. So let's take a closer look at the book. Here on the cover you have Cloak, Dagger, and this mysterious gentleman, or creature rather, which we'll talk about here in a few. Here's what the spine looks like. Marvel Omnibus up at the top, Cloak and Dagger logo, Volume 2, and then a picture of Tandy and Tyrone there. And then the back of the book that has all the covers and the retail price of $100. And then just a little bit about the characters in here and then what it collects. It actually gives credits down here to the writers and artists. This is a volume 2 of the classic series. So this one came out in 2019, and then now we have volume 2 here in 2021. What the spines look like together there. And then the backs of the books. So let's take a closer look under the dust jacket. Here's the standard edition cover by Rick Leonardo. I think that's from Cloak and Dagger number 16, if I'm not mistaken. The spine with a different picture of Cloak and Dagger down there. That one's by Larry Stroman. And then the direct market cover. So even if you get the cover or you don't get the cover you want, you still have them underneath the dust jacket. Alright, let's take a closer look inside the book. Alright, so let's take a closer look inside. Black bookend pages and Cloak and Dagger. Here are your credits: Bill Mantlo, Peter Gillis, Terry Austin, Steve Gerber, and Terry Cavanagh, the main writers on the book, and then all your different artists. The book is printed at the Donnelly printer, and your table of contents where you will find each of the comics and what page. And kicking it off with Strange Tales, so immediately taking place right after the first omnibus. The first omnibus ended with the collection of Strange Tales number 2, and here's Strange Tales number 3. So this does collect the remaining issues of Strange Tales. So you do have material from Strange Tales 3 through 19. However, it does contain the entire issue number 7, because that's the crossover with who they share the title with, Doctor Strange. It also collects the Marvel graphic novel, Cloak and Dagger, Predator and Prey, and then when they got their own ongoing series again, called The Mighty Mutant Misadventures of Cloak and Dagger, 1 through 13, then when the title was renamed to Cloak and Dagger, 14 through 19. So all of it is in here, all the classic era of Cloak and Dagger, the late 80s, early 90s. Here we have Predator and Prey, written by Bill Mantlo, drawn by a very young Larry Stroman, and Al Williamson's providing the inks here. And this is a pretty interesting story because this goes back to the concept of what exactly is this dark force that Cloak gets his powers from. So if you're not familiar with the characters of Cloak and Dagger and you need just a little bit of a recap, we have two runaways of Tyrone Johnson and Tandy Bowen, who unfortunately were living on the streets, and they were experiments. They were guinea pigs for this project that gave them the side effect of powers. And together, they decided to become these superheroes that take on street thugs and crime. So, usually helping the homeless, usually helping drug addicts, and that's what pretty much their origin is. I talked about it, if you want to know more, in the first volume overview. If you want to click on the link above, I'll put it up there. But both of them have different powers, of course. Dagger's able to create these light daggers that can hurt people. It can actually heal people. And Cloak has the power of the Dark Force, not like a Jedi, but this cloak that is able to teleport him wherever he wants, but going through this dark dimension. And he can also use it to harm people. So this particular graphic novel is pretty interesting because we get to see where the hunger comes from. And the reason, one thing I don't think I said this in the first video because I wanted people to find out, but one of the things about Cloak and Dagger and why their relationship works is because he has a constant hunger for the light. So that's what she kind of feeds him. Even when they're not together, they don't have to be physically together. She can be far away. She still feeds him that light. And the cloak still hungers. So what's inside the cloak is this thing called a predator. And when Cloak hasn't eaten for a while, the predator comes out. So that's what this graphic novel is. And it's both of them trying to hunt down this creature that's going around and harming people. And then we get back to the Strange Tales. And Strange Tales kicking off with Bill Mantlo and Brett Blevins' run. But Bill Mantlo only, I think he ends up leaving with issue number 7. This is his final issue right here, which is the crossover with the Doctor Strange stories in here. I think that one was written by Peter Gillis. But they did share that title, Strange Tales, because both titles weren't doing that well. So Marvel gave them a chance to just share a title. Here we have some guest stars. So we do get some guest stars, even though they're used to dealing with just normal bad guys, people with no superpowers. We still get guest stars like, well, obviously Doctor Strange, but we have Dazzler there. And mutants are going to become a big part of Cloak and Dagger in a little bit. We have Black Cat that guest stars here. And then Brett Blevins also ends up leaving the book. And then we have other rotating artists coming in and out. One of the earliest work of Will Spartano can be found here. And this is Will Spartano, the guy that co-created Bishop. He went on to do Wetworks. He's drawn Hulk. He's drawn X-Men. And just several titles, Punisher, over at Marvel. But here is one of his earliest works on this issue of Strange Tales. And then let's get to the last issue with the story of Mayhem here. So this is the final issue of Strange Tales where Cloak and Dagger appear. This one is written by Terry Austin, who's become the regular writer after Bill Mantlo left, and it is drawn by Eric Larson. So this one doesn't even feature Doctor Strange. I think this just features the Thing. And then it continues, because it does end on a cliffhanger, with their new ongoing title, because Marvel thought, okay, well, people have taken an interest in Cloak and Dagger again. Let's give them their own title, but let's make it only available to the direct market, so only sold at comic book stores, because, well, there was no online comic book market back then. So now the title is called The Mutant Misadventures of Cloak and Dagger. So kicking it off with this first issue, guest starring X-Factor. So now they're going to have closer ties to mutants. It's not just X-Factor. New Mutants show up in here. Terry Austin is still writing the book, and he is joined by Dan Lawless is the artist on the book. We had some Kevin Nolan supplying some of the artwork. And what this series ends up doing them is bring them closer to the mutant world and taking them out of the church, their sanctuary where they were with Father Delgado towards the very beginning of this, the Holy Ghost, the Church of the Holy Ghost. But now they're here with a bunch of mutants. As a matter of fact, it's one of these things with Cloak and Dagger, like, are they really mutants or not? Because they weren't born with their powers, they were given their powers. However, Hank McCoy and all these other issues in between, because there's been retcons saying, yes, they are mutants. No, they're not mutants. So it's kind of like, depending on the writer, whether they want to treat them as mutants or not. I think for me, I've just gotten to the point where yeah, sure, they're mutants. There for a little bit, this is a freaking badass picture. Mike Vosberg becomes the ongoing artist. But there for a little bit, we had Cloak, who had died, quote unquote. And we had this character right here, named Ecstasy, who takes over his cloak. The other thing I didn't say is, and I wanted to go back here for a second, is during these days of Strange Tales, like I mentioned, they just fight a bunch of street thugs and drug dealers, but they actually end up getting their own villain, Mr. Jip here. He becomes their very first supervillain who has superpowers. And he sticks around for a while. Actually, he keeps coming back and has a team up here in a little bit. But yes, this is now Ecstasy, and she has Cloak's power. And of course, nobody stays dead in comics, so you all know if you've watched the show or have been reading comics recently or knew about Maximum Carnage, Cloak and Dagger are back to being Tandy, and Tyrone. We have Rick Leonardo come back. I love his inks, I love when his pencils are inked by Terry Austin. There's just something special about that. I think that is a wonderful combo. Kind of like what Terry Austin... Terry Austin is one of my favorite inkers. But when Terry Austin was inking John Byrne's pencils on Uncanny X-Men, I think my favorite second duo was Rick Leonardo and Terry Austin. I think he did an amazing job of just finishing his pencils. There's some covers here by Mike Mignola. Like I mentioned, Kevin Nolan doing some covers. And let's keep going. Here's a Rick Leonardo cover. And then Terry Austin ends up leaving the book, giving it to Terry Cavanagh, and then we had a bunch of fill-in writers like Steve Gerber comes in and helps out. And they tie it back up to Spider-Man, retelling a lot of the origin of Cloak and Dagger. So they do bring it back, which is where they made their first appearance. But I did want to quickly look at issue number 19, the final issue. Oh yeah, by the time it gets towards the ending, they were having crossover after crossover. They were in the Inferno, they were in the Infinity Gauntlet. They team up to take down Mephisto, and they have to fight Doctor Doom. Doctor Doom teams up with Mr. Jip to take down Cloak and Dagger. And this is do not be fooled into thinking this is Uncanny X-Force or anything to do with the X-Men, when has very little. This is long before X-Force was even a thing, long before Uncanny X-Force was even thought of. Here's these people that are claiming to be Wolverine, Storm, Colossus. I think Terry Shoemaker did the artwork in that. Schumacher, sorry. Or Shoemaker. It's spelled Shoemaker. I've actually met him. I never asked how to pronounce him. Anyway, the interesting thing about this is this goes back to the drug, the D-Light drug, that gave them their powers. And one of the things we see here is, what if they had each other's powers? So I thought that was a really cool thing. I like when things like this happen. And we've seen that before later on in House of M or alternate realities. Now, the book has 800 pages. Let's take a look at the extras. So we have some Marvel Age extras back here. Articles and interviews. Hey, there's Mr. Jib. And if you're also a fan of Brett Blevins' artwork in here, you're going to see a lot of his art in the New Mutants Omnibus Volume 2 when it comes out. This is a classic Howard the Duck as Cloak. Steve Gerber was writing those final issues towards the end here. These are Terry Austin's Cloak and Dagger letter pages, like his articles that he would write on the letter pages. And here we have, trading cards. Sorry, I was reading the book and I didn't even get back here. There's Ecstasy and Mr. Jib. And then the Larry Stroman cover here. And the Rick Leonardo cover for the trade paperback. Let's take a look at the binding. So it is sewn binding, Donnelly printer. Very small eye, but the book lays over rather well. Whether you're towards the front, or I just use this, or towards the back. Not a lot of spread pages in here, but that, as they say, is that. If you're interested in purchasing this book, don't forget to check out our sponsor, cheapgraphicnovels.com, your online home for brand new graphic novels and collected editions up to 50% off cover price. They pride themselves on packaging your books so they arrive safely and in excellent condition, as well as prompt and helpful service. Check out the bargain deals for up to 90% off cover price. CGN is excited to announce that they are now taking pre-orders. They're making it easier for you to ensure that you don't miss out on the hottest releases. CGN is currently running a special promotion for you Minties. If you're a first-time customer, let them know that you were referred by Near Mint Condition at the checkout, and you'll receive a credit for free shipping on your next order. This promotion is valid for U.S. customers only. Cheap Graphic Novels, your source for the hottest books with the kind of deep discount and quality shipping and customer service that will keep you coming back for more. And that was the content, the page count, and build of this omnibus. Let me know in the comments down below if you've picked up the series in omnibus format, if you were getting the classic trade paperbacks, if you remember Cloak and Dagger, if you were picking them up monthly or bi-monthly, or if you've never read the comics and this is the way that you've been reading them. So, if you have any more questions, please leave those questions down below. Don't forget to smash that like button, ring that bell for notifications to let you know when our videos are going live. We are on Spreadshop and on Patreon, amazing ways to support the channel if you can do so. And more importantly, everyone, stay healthy and safe out there. Much love.